What is going on, everybody? John Impemba here with Ryan Hallam, giving you another edition of FA Sports Talk Monday Night Football Preview Edition here. Ryan, obviously, you usually do this with Fency. I'm subbing in for him today, to go over tonight's going to be thrilling game that we have here between the Pittsburgh Steelers and Cincinnati Bengals. Is a real solid prime time matchup that the NFL schedule makers are putting us through tonight.
Yeah, I'm sure some executive at ESPN was really not happy when Joe Burrow went down as they saw this one on the slate. This is going to be a one-sided affair for sure tonight, and God, it's there's really no other way to put it. There's really nobody on Cincinnati.
At least that's the expectations, because we did see the Jets get a win yesterday against the Rams. So they were 17.5-point dogs, pulled it off. This game, I think it was Pittsburgh's favored by 14.5. Is that the latest number that we saw?
Yeah, it's somewhere. If it's not, it's close to that. Yeah, it's
it was either 2 touchdowns or 13.5. It was in that range. I've seen it kind of go up and down, and then it's only a 40.5 game total. So we're not expecting a lot of points to be scored here tonight either. Again, you just look at the matchups here. The Bengals are going to their third quarterback option. They had Burrow. Obviously, he got hurt. Ryan Finley played a little bit. Then he got benched for Brandon Allen. But now Brandon Allen is out, and Ryan Finley is being reinserted into the starting lineup. It's not looking good here for Cincinnati as they go up against one of the top-ranked defenses in the NFL with the Steelers.
Yeah, I found that quite funny in your Showdown Slate article. It's like, oh, Ryan Finley's in, and he wasn't good enough to play over Brandon Allen, so let that sink in. So, yeah. It's probably going to be a pretty one-sided game. The over-under basically comes down to if you think the Steelers can score 40 points, because that's about probably what we're looking at. The last time they played the Bengals, they threw and threw and threw despite having a big lead. I don't think they got to 40. I think they were in the mid-30s. But the number's tough. The number's tough to think it's going to go over when I think everyone thinks it's going to be so one-sided.
Yeah, I mean, we're not expecting really any points coming from the Cincinnati side, so it would have to be a pretty heavy carry night if you're going to hit that over on the Pittsburgh side. Now, it's certainly possible. I mean, we're talking about a Bengals team ranked 29th in DVOA against the pass, and we know right now the Steelers are all about the passing attack. James Conner has really struggled in recent weeks, and now he's even questionable to play. He's had back-to-back limited practice participation, so I think he's likely going to be active for this one. But he just hasn't looked very good. And the Steelers receivers, when they're not dropping the football, have really been one of the best overall wide receiver groups in the league, whether it be Devonte Johnson, Juju Smith-Schuster, Chase Claypool, and even Eric Ebron this year, one of the more targeted tight ends in football. So I'm expecting them to come out and just throw all over this bad pass defense.
Yeah, and I'm hoping a lot of it goes to Devonte Johnson so I can pull off the Fantasy Alarm staff league over there. Grande, I got him by 8.1. He's got Juju. Don't like my chances. So rooting for a lot of Devonte Johnson and Chase Claypool tonight.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's going to be a pretty even target share, I think, usually spread around. And Devonte is the one that typically leads the team in targets. I think almost every game that he's played a full game, not counting him being benched last week either, he's had at least 10 or more targets. So when he's on the field, Big Ben technically looks his way. I'm with you there, though. I'm actually looking to fade 10 points from Boswell, the kicker there for Pittsburgh, to get into my home league fantasy championship. So, at least keep me somewhat invested outside of course, playing DFS tonight, because we do have the Showdown Slate, the playbook I wrote up this morning, already out there for everybody to read. And probably no surprise to everybody, it's just full of Steelers. Because both FanDuel, DraftKings require you to play at least one Bengal. You kind of basically are spending down there and looking to just fill your lineups with the Steelers players here. But Ryan, before we jumped live, you and I were kind of discussing about our captain MVP options, and we're both leaning the Pittsburgh defense here.
Yeah, like you said, Finley is terrible. He's likely to turn the ball over, I would say, a minimum of 2 times. If they score 10 points, I will be shocked if they even get to 10. So I think the Steelers at a fairly discounted price is a really good play for your captain. It's 10,800, and I believe Roethlisberger was 17 and change. So that's a huge amount of money that you're going to be able to save. As a spot to get a decent number of points. And like we were talking before we started here. You come out of the gate looking great when you have the defense in your captain spot.
Right. Yeah, you get the 15 fantasy points obviously because you automatically get the 10 just from your defense starting, and then you get the 1.5 bonus. But to your point right now, the Steelers defense are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're the 7th highest priced player on the slate over on DraftKings, right? So you insert them in there. They lead the league in sacks. They lead the league in takeaways. Ryan Finley, again, we mentioned horrible. He had 3 appearances in games earlier this year, completed just 52% of his passes, was picked off twice. And in those 3 appearances, again, limited appearances, he was sacked 7 times during that span. So, yeah, this is just going to be gangbusters here for the Steelers D. So for me, they're my lock and load caption option. Of course, you can go Big Ben. You can go Deontay Johnson or Juju. They're all likely going to have big games. They're just more expensive. So they're better off for flex plays, in my opinion. Another guy that I'm going to be looking at for my captain spot tonight is Eric Ebron. You're talking about value. He's like the 11th, I think, highest priced player on the slate. He's a tight end that has seen at least 5 targets or more in all but 2 games this season. So he's someone that's often targeted. His problems had been really just holding onto the football. Before last week, he had 2 straight games of 7 catches, 11 targets. So you put a guy like that in your captain spot, and now you're really cooking with the value. So for me, it's all about getting Steelers in here. If you have to play, a Bengal, maybe you go with T. Higgins, who's very cheap, and again, he's going to get some looks, or Tyler Boyd, but probably not much else there.
Yeah, and the other good thing about Ebron and the Bengals, I think, are the 3rd worst team defense against the tight end. I think they give up almost about 13 fantasy points a week to the tight end. So there's another little tidbit that makes Ebron an even more attractive spot for your captain.
Yeah, if you're going like a deep dive here, is there anybody that you like on either side? Because again, we're playing these showdown slates. You really have to get contrarian. The last couple of weeks, and with the Steelers had been in the showdowns, I've been using James Washington. He's found the end zone twice, so that's been working out. But do you have anybody that you're looking at as sort of a dart throw per se?
I went all the way to the bottom of the trash can, dug up all the little bits of food and the eclairs and everything like that, and I found Travion Williams for $1,200 on DraftKings. I know it's a long shot. Gio Bernard has just been kind of slowly been phased out. He's been hurt. He fumbled, the last game, and he led the team in carries. I know he's not very good. I know the Steelers are great against the run. I know the Bengals are likely to get crushed, so the game script doesn't scream, run the ball a lot. But $1,200 is almost a free spot, and it gives you a chance to get, maybe 2 of the Steelers receivers and then Ebron into your lineup. So it gives you some flexibility. It's kind of, you hope he breaks maybe one decent run, gives you 30, 40 yards, and maybe catches a pass or 2, and loads you up 6 points, and one of the other guys you pick pops off and makes it worthwhile.
Yeah, if you get 4 to 6 points out of him, you're probably okay at the price, right? So you're paying it off there. But with the the DFS Showdown slate, we also do a lot of prop picks over here at Fantasy Alarm. We love playing over a Monkey Knife Fight, and we kind of went over some interesting props that you can kind of go for over there. What are some of your favorites that you're taking a look at?
I think you talked a lot about him before. I think Deontay Johnson, they have one. His prop is 65.5 receiving yards. I really think he would have to get benched for drops over for an extended period to not hit 65.5. So that is one of my favorites. Another one with him is 14.5 fantasy points. It's a little bit riskier, but I mean the 65.5 yards to me is almost a no-brainer.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a pretty easy one for him to get to as well. I also liked the Juju 5.5 receptions. I think that one should be one that we look to go over. The Ben yard total at 279.5. That one is actually a little bit tough for me. It's a number that he's gone over just a handful of times this season. And while we're expecting, obviously this game to, be a blowout, it's not going to be a shootout. So I'm worried that he's not going to really have that pass volume where, they may be able to move up and down the field pretty quickly, but then they're going to get a big enough lead where, they're not going to expect him to throw 40 times, right? So I may actually go under the Big Ben pass yards total that they have there of 279.5. I could see him settling to that, 240 to 260 with, 3 scores, just because the defense is turning the ball over and giving them short fields, and the Bengals defense is not really putting up much resistance.
Yeah, I agree. That's a really tough one. That's one of whenever I lose on this site, it's usually pretty close, and I feel like that's one that I think is going to be within 5 or 6 yards either direction. So that's one. Yeah, I might go for something different and avoid that one or go the under. How about Ryan Finley? The fantasy points is only 9.5.
Right.
But I don't know that I'm picking the over. That's the funny part. Like we just said, we think he's going to turn it over probably 2 times. That's -4. So now does he have to throw 2 touchdowns to reach 9.5? I mean, if he throws 150 yards, that's 6 points. So you need 150 yards and a touchdown with no turnovers. I think 9.5 might be too high.
I want to know if there's a prop anywhere on Kevin Hogan completing a pass tonight, because I think there's a chance that Finley gets knocked out of this game, and they're going to have to go to a different, their backup quarterback here. There's just no protection. He's not a good quarterback. He gets sacked a ton. I agree. 9.5 fantasy points. It feels like it's going to be a struggle for a team that may not get 100 yards of offense. 150 yards of offense here, in this game. So, his passing yardage prop of 180, I would be surprised to see that. I just don't have much confidence in this Bengals offense. It's been down in recent weeks anyways. We had Brandon Allen at quarterback, and as we touched upon, they tried to give Finley the option, and he lost his job to Allen. So, what can we really expect out of Ryan Finley here against one of the best defenses in football? So I'm with you there. I would go under the 180 yards passing. I would go probably under the 9.5 fantasy points there. I would go over Ben's prop of 19.5, because again, I think he could probably muster out 240 and 3 scores, and that should probably get him around the 20 fantasy point mark. And then I do like the Tyler Boyd props here, 4.5 receptions, 9.5 fantasy points. I do think they're going to target him, and it being PPR, I still think he's going to sort of get his, even if it's 5 catches for 50 yards. I could sort of see that happening. So it's probably hard to be on the number, but if someone's going to do anything in this offense, it's probably him. He's coming out of the slot. They'll have him run easier routes. The slot's actually a better way to attack the Steelers defense. Throwing on the outside of them is not going to do them any good. So I can see Boyd probably being the most productive player on the Bengals tonight.
Yeah, and he can, like he did a couple weeks ago, he took a short pass and took it a long way, and he could just find a little hole in the defense to get him there. So yeah, I agree with you. I think it's just the volume alone. I don't know that Finley's going to throw the ball more than 25 times, but I bet you Boyd gets 8 of them or 9 of them.
Right. It's a very concentrated passing attack. Another guy that's been getting a ton of targets lately had been Drew Sample. He could, again, easy routes, tight ends go out in the flat or 5 yards out over the middle, and they're just easy throws. And Boyd can sort of run those similar type of routes. So I'm not expecting a big night from Higgins, but Drew Sample I think could maybe be a guy. If we could, get his, find out whatever his, receptions prop could be. If it's over 3.5, you could maybe take a look and take a stab at that. There's probably a little bit of upside there with him just because of, again, simplifying the offense, and he's been a beneficiary of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what do we think is, you did the game previews, obviously. What do you have for the score here tonight?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know exactly what it is off the top of my head, but I'm going to say that I think the Steelers are going to win this one. I'm going to say 31-6. I think it's going to be. I think again, like last time, they're going to crush the Bengals and not let their foot off the pedal, and end up with a really, really sound beating.
Yeah, I think that's probably pretty where we're going to look here. Maybe the Bengals get a couple field goals out of it. If that, then like you said, you're looking at 4 scores and a field goal basically for the Steelers. So it's not going to be a fun game, but if you're invested in it, like we are at least, it'll give us something to watch here on a Monday until basketball starts tomorrow. So I'll be excited for that one.
Going back, I just opened it. I had it 38-16, but that was when I thought that Brandon Allen was quarterbacking at the time.
Right.
So I'm going to take some more points off for Ryan Finley.
It takes him away, yeah, for sure, because he's awful. So that's obviously the Monday night game that we're looking over. Again, not overly excited, but you can go over to fantasyalarm.com right now and check out the NFL Showdown playbook that I have out there. You can catch Ryan's game preview for how he thinks this one's going to break down. But it was an exciting week of fantasy football here. We had another big game out of Jalen Hurts, proving that, he probably should have been in the lineup sooner. And not to put everything on Carson Wentz, because that offensive line has been absolute trash. But when you're allowing a bad pass blocking offensive line to now focus on run blocking, the offense seems to move a little bit better. Plus, it makes the defense not sit back as much. They have to worry. So what's your opinion here of Hurts going forward? Do you think this is the end of Carson Wentz's time in Philadelphia?
Absolutely. I know Hurts was named starter for Week 16 today. Shocker there. And again, like you said, you can't blame it all on Wentz, but clearly the guy's holding the ball too long because, like you said, the offensive line is bad, but they're not getting to Hurts all the time. And sure, maybe he's more apt to run than Wentz was, but Wentz didn't used to be a standstill quarterback early in his career.
Early in the season, even Wentz had like 5 rushing touchdowns. Like he was scrambling out of necessity more than one. Yeah. But I mean, he was doing it.
I think definitely a loss of confidence. But Hurts has just opened up the whole offense. A lot of it's not really helping the wide receivers. Jalen Reagor was having a decent game before he was hurt yesterday. Both the tight ends are okay, but this is really just. It's kind of a one-man show with Hurts, and he obviously has brought Miles Sanders back from the dead with him.
Yeah, I mean, again, another questionable decision by the Eagles staff basically all season was not giving Sanders more touches. And a lot of people are kind of down on Hurts in terms of his completion percentage, back-to-back weeks under 60%. But he's really throwing the ball downfield. So they're low percentage plays, but those plays are typically open because the defense is focus so much on the RPO, focus so much on stopping the run that they're taking these shots downfield, trying to get the big plays. And, sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not. And that's going to be sort of the offense that they're going to be running there in Philadelphia with him under center. What's one of the other big stories that you found interesting from yesterday's slate of games?
Well, probably one of the biggest ones for me was Drew Brees coming back. We didn't know how effective he was going to be with the really bad rib, collapsed lung, all of the injuries. And for the first half, it certainly looked like perhaps they brought him back a week too soon. Right. But he got it together in the second half. Turned out, I think he was 243 yards and a couple scores. Michael Thomas is now done for the year. The Saints just can't seem to catch a break. But having Brees back certainly gives them an NFL offense again. That trash that Taysom Hill was running was infuriating to watch. So this certainly helps Emmanuel Sanders, Traquan Smith, and, of course, Alvin Kamara getting back to catching passes again. So I thought Brees' return and given a real close game against the Chiefs was some of the fun of yesterday.
Yeah, I agree with you. We also had the Jets blowing their shot at Trevor Lawrence for whatever reason.
That was so Jets.
I don't know why you wanted to win that football game, but they did. We all thought that they were going to beat the Raiders a few weeks back, and then they allowed that touchdown at the end of the game pretty much to Henry Ruggs to score, and we're like, all right, they're clearly not trying to win. And now the Jaguars have the lead here for Trevor Lawrence, and kind of, again, the Jets being the Jets. I think that was one of the more interesting storylines. Not only that they won, but that the Rams lost, because I've been kind of calling the Rams pretenders for most of the season. Their schedule earlier in the year, they were facing some pretty bad teams. The majority of it was the NFC East, that they weren't very good, whether it was Philadelphia or the Giants or the Cowboys. A lot of their wins seemed fake to me, and then they went into Miami and got blown out. But then they had, a nice win against Seattle. So I was kind of going back and forth on what they were. But then they lay an egg here against the Jets. So it's, to me, I still don't think they're that good. I think that there are times where they have flaws. I don't think Goff is a very good quarterback. If their schemes aren't hitting correct, if the teams figure out how to, defend against their motion plays, I think they're rather kind of limited, and McVay's shine sort of goes away there.
Yeah, they are probably the most maddening team this year. It's like they're definitely one of the most inconsistent, like 15 weeks in the season. And like you said, we don't know what they are.
Right.
At times they look great. They, like you said, the Seattle game, they won that one. And times Goff looks great. They've certainly, found Cam Akers is their guy. Robert Woods has been a pretty solid wide receiver for most of the season. They have 2 stars of the league in Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey on the defensive side of the ball. And here they are, like you said, they beat up on the NFC East. Congratulations. So is everyone else. And now they go to Seattle in week 16. And I think, this is going to be the full exposure. Can they pull it together in Seattle, for what is likely to be the division title? I don't think so. I don't have a lot of faith in them. Like you said, Jared Goff, most of the time, is just okay.
Yeah,
he's
a
number one
manager, right?
He's not great. He's not terrible, but he doesn't really excite you most of the time.
Let me know what you think here going forward about the potential return of George Kittle. Now, obviously, you being a 49ers fan, it is week 16. He was activated or potentially activated to return last week, didn't. If you're a fantasy owner holding on to George Kittle, are you trusting him? Should he return this week against the Cardinals?
I tell you, I would have a real hard time in my fantasy championship putting everything on a guy who hasn't played in 9 weeks. I love George Kittle. He's my favorite player. I'm sure he's dying to get out there because that's the kind of guy he is, and I'm sure he's not going to come back until he's able. The Cardinals went from an embarrassment against the tight end last year to one of the better defenses against the tight end this year. Mm-hmm. So it's not even like they have a very good matchup. The team is kind of falling apart, losing that game to the Cowboys yesterday. And Nick Mullins is okay, makes too many mistakes and turnovers. So can Kittle get you 10 fantasy points? Probably. And with the landscape of tight end, is that terrible? Sadly, it's not. If you're someone who's streaming tight ends and you're looking at Tyler Higbee or some other someone else off the trash pile, then probably he's okay. If you have any of the top 6 guys, I don't think Kittle's going to help you very much.
Yeah, I wrote an article last week basically calling him a trap play if you were going to end up trying to start him. And it was basically based off how players on the 49ers had, their usage when they returned from IR. We saw Jordan Reed come back from his injury and play 13 snaps. We saw Deebo Samuel play 30% of the snaps when he returned. And now we have a long layoff here from Kittle with a foot injury. And it's like, is Shanahan going to put him out there for 20% of the snaps? And, and sure, those snaps could be red zone targets or something like that. But, you don't really want to put a guy on the field that is so limited because then he becomes very dependent for when he's on the field that he has to get those targets. And that's not always the case, right? He could be on the field and the ball could go to Ayuk or something like that and kind of wasted plays. So I'm with you on that one. If you have George Kittle, it's best to keep him on your bench. I had, even been in some Twitter conversations where, they were like, oh, scoop him up to keep him away. And I'm like, well, if you're not high on him, I would almost want my opponent to make that mistake.
Right.
If you don't like them, don't keep them on your roster. Let someone else start them, and then, trust your own belief, trust your own analysis there, and kind of go ahead and let that one move forward and see if you can let them, play the bad guy and end up ruining, your matchup and get the advantage over them. So, that's sort of my take on returning players from injury. I don't like to play them. I don't like to trade for them. Kind of let them play out itself. And then finally, before we wrap this one up here, we had a debate, and it was in Dan Malin's Hot Takes article this week, and there was that no player was worth $9,000 in DFS. And I want to know what your opinion is on that, because Derrick Henry continues to really steamroll all of his opponents. And yesterday, there was some odd touchdown variance that went against him. Well, yes, he was able to find the end zone. Ryan Tannehill had 2 rushing touchdowns. Darrington Evans had a rushing touchdown. So, a lot of the scores that could have easily gone Henry's way sort of went away from him yesterday. So he, while he still ran for 150 yards and had some touchdowns, his day certainly could have been greater. Do you believe that there is a price point in DFS where a player is just no longer worth paying up for?
Last year I would say I remember a lot of the prices for Michael Thomas were pretty, like, it was getting over 10,000.
McCaffrey was over 10K a few times last
year. Yeah, and I don't believe in the right matchup and the right team. No, I don't think there is. I think Henry's a great play. I mean, on top of the fact he's got 300 yards in the last 2 weeks. He absolutely embarrassed somebody with the stiff arm yesterday, basically just throwing them through the ground. And He scores all the time. Devonte Adams is another one where I think that he can often pay the value of being 9,000. So it's rare, but I definitely think that there are some cases. I mean, you get Devonte Adams against the Lions. I mean, I'll pay almost whatever you want.
Right. We have you have Tyreek Hill this week on the main slate as the lone 9K player home against Atlanta. That's your 9K bid. Travis Kelsey is $8,500. Kelsey has just been absolutely unbelievable. Now, yesterday, the yardage obviously hadn't been what it was in weeks prior, but he still gave you 22 fantasy points. And now, if you look at, I think it's like 7 of his last 8 games now, or 6 of his last 7 games, he's given you at least 22 fantasy points. And before yesterday's performance, 5 of the last 6, he had given you at least 27 fantasy points. So Travis Kelsey, just an absolute monster in terms of consistent production. If you're looking to pay up, he's really the guy. And Atlanta, all season long has been one of the worst tight end teams against tight end. So, those are expensive plays, but I saw that in Dan Malin's Hot Takes article today, saying that no player is worth that amount of money in DFS. And I was wondering if you had felt the same way, because, last year, if you didn't pay the 10K for McCaffrey most weeks, you were losing because he was going for 40, 50 fantasy points.
Yeah, Malin eats peanuts without taking the shell off them, so I don't know how much we can put stock into his opinions. That's anyway.
True. Does he like banana and mayonnaise sandwiches or something like that?
I think it's peanut butter and mayonnaise.
Peanut butter and mayonnaise.
But I definitely think that there is some, like, my father also has an opinion like food shouldn't cost more than $9.99. I'm like, Dad, then you just aren't eating at the right places then. So I definitely think that there are certainly cases, like you said, McCaffrey was just popping off every week. He's not worth the price tag. So yeah, I agree. There are certainly guys in certain situations. And especially with the Chiefs, you bring up those 2 guys. I mean, let's look at how prolific their offense is. Right. And 2 players are fantasy relevant. No one else is even close. Sammy Watkins has maybe 2 good games a year. So their entire pass offense with Patrick Mahomes, who's a record-setting quarterback, goes through 2 guys. So yeah, those 2 guys are going to be really worth it in a game against one of the worst secondaries in football.
Yeah, one of the worst secondaries in football for sure. Mahomes himself is 8,500. Not to make this a Week 16 DFS preview, but again, paying up for these guys. I saw that, I read that as I go Malin with the hot takes here. But Ryan, again, we're coming to the end of today's stream. We just to recap briefly. We're big fans of Pittsburgh tonight. We think they're going to run in an absolute rout in this game. If you're looking for plays for your showdown lineups, we both think that using the Steelers defense in your captain spot is a great play. I also think that Eric Ebron fits well into that spot if you're looking for a spend down, but you're pretty much loading up on Steelers here. The game total is only 40.5. They're about 2 touchdown favorites. Ryan Finley is the quarterback for Cincinnati tonight with Brendan Allen out. So pretty much everything is leaning the way of the Steelers, with like the lone exception of them being on the road, right? Like, and not that even really matters anymore in the NFL because there's no fans in the stands, but it's going to be clear weather. There's no wind. It's Cincinnati. So, go out there. If you're looking to make some bets tonight, definitely go ahead and get in on Pittsburgh. And we think probably the under, because we don't see Cincinnati scoring many points, and, Pittsburgh could go and score 4 scores. 5 touchdowns even and hit the under still. So that's our leans. That's probably the way we're going to close the show.
Sounds good. Looking forward to another Monday Night Football. And this is there's only one more Monday night game. There's none on Week 17, so there's only one more to go after this. So enjoy it, everybody. It's as much as this game might be very one-sided and not the most exciting, it's still NFL football, and damn it, that's awesome.
That is true. So for Ryan Hallam, John Impemba, obviously, if you have any questions, you can hit us up on Twitter. Our Twitter handles are down below, but you have at Fighting Chance for Ryan, at JMPemba777 for myself. We're also always in subscriber chat. You can always ask us questions in either the NFL DFS chat, NFL seasonal chat. We're there to get you going. Plus, holidays are coming up, Ryan. We have our holiday sale right now, FantasyAlarm.com/holiday. It's $97 for everything that we offer on the site right now. All sports, NFL, MLB is starting up, NBA is starting up, NHL is coming. We have our esports DFS package, which last night we had League of Legends winners. People were taking down GPPs in League of Legends last night. So whatever you guys we cover here for DFS is included in that package, $97, one payment, no new payments till January 1st of 2022. So go ahead, hit that deal, and make someone happy for the holidays, Ryan. That's all we're really about. So for now, we'll catch you guys next time.